I caught my wife with another man in a church and got into an accident right after. But now I have plenty of time to plan my revenge. Have you ever slept so long that you knew it was time to get up, but you still could not force your eyes to open? If you have, you know the feeling of being able to perceive your surroundings, but still you cannot see them with eyes that simply refuse to open. You know that you are at home in your bedroom and that the sun is breaking through the window blinds because you can see the light through your eyelids. You can hear a bird singing outside your window in the tree that is in the backyard, or you hear the familiar sound of the furnace turning on and eventually turning off. Gradually and reluctantly, you realize that no matter what you do, you cannot go back to sleep and that you might as well get up. The world seems to fade in as you open your eyes. I faded into a conscious state in a similar way, but it was not on a pleasant sunny morning, but on a dark and lonely night in an unknown place. After a bit of head shaking and clearing the cobwebs, I began to recognize where I was. It was the intersection of a county road and a two-lane highway just over a kilometer from my house. I was wondering what the hell I was doing here alone and on foot so late at night when a car passed by me. I looked at the road using its headlights. My car was nowhere in sight. I said to myself, what the hell, Ken? You might as well start walking. Maybe you can figure all this out on the way home. When I pushed a loose strand of my bangs away from my face, I thought my arm looked a bit transparent. It has to be the darkness and your head playing tricks. You cannot be. I held my hand up between my face and the streetlight about 100 meters back towards the intersection I was walking away from, and it seemed like I saw the light through my hand. You cannot be transparent, you fool. You must have hit your head. That could explain a few things. I touched my head with both hands, but I felt no pain or bruises, and there was no blood on them when I pulled them away. Get a grip, friend. Concentrate. What is the last thing you remember? I found that talking out loud to myself always helped me think things through better, as it slowed down my thoughts enough so I could spot any errors and correct them. I started to go over the last few pieces of my life and try to organize them into a coherent timeline that would explain why I was here. By the time I reached the corner of the dead-end street where I lived, I had reconstructed that I was on my way home from work and had stopped by the church to drop something off or pick something up. I was on my way home from the church, which would take me to that intersection, but it should be around 5:30 in the afternoon in February, not in the middle of the night in late March or early April, as I was guessing, because I had been looking at the dark green spring grass and flowers. I figured it must be at least 2 or 3 in the morning by the amount of traffic passing by on the streets I was walking home on. This simply did not make sense. But then again, it did not make sense that a man in a cowboy hat was sitting on my porch in the middle of the night. Ken Goodman, I suppose. You arrived just in time, he told me in a tone with a slight Western accent. Who are you, and what are you doing on my porch at this hour of the night? He continued in his relaxed manner. The simplest description is that I am your spirit guide. My name is Tom, and I am waiting here for you. I know it is a lot to take in, but trust me, it gets worse or deeper depending on how you take it. Please sit with me for a while. I have a lot to tell you before you go in there. I do not know who you think you are, but I am going in right now to my wife. I am sure she is worried about where I have been. Tom interrupted me, but you are not exactly sure where you have been either, are you? How did you know that? That is what I am trying to tell you. I am here to help you transition to your new existence. I knew what I asked in disbelief. Okay, there is no easy way to tell you this, so I will just say it straight out. It is shocking. Are you ready? Brace yourself. You are dead. He said it with a completely serious expression that gave credibility to his words. You are completely crazy. I am standing here on my front lawn in the middle of the night talking to a lunatic. I think you need to leave right now. I feared for my family's safety as well as my own. Okay, he replied calmly. If that is what you want, I will leave. However, first, I think you need to answer a simple question for me. Does that seem fair? Okay, what is your question? Where are your feet? I looked down to where they should be, but they were not there. Somewhere around my knees, they just disappeared. What the hell? In simple terms, you are a ghost. He paused for emphasis. We prefer to think of ourselves as sacred seekers of the afterlife, SSOA for short. Focusing on the word sacred, I asked shyly, does that mean there is a God and that I am going to? Hey, I cannot answer those questions. You will get the answers soon. Let us just say that if you were totally and unequivocally on the list to visit the old Mr. Fire and Brimstone, you would not be here. But your fate has not been fully decided either. I hate to use the vast oversimplification that this is your final test, but what you do before you are called to the final judgment could make a big difference. However, the main reason you are here is that you are needed here. I do not know the future mostly because it changes, and I have only been briefed on the recent past as to why you are here. No doubt you can only remember bits and pieces of your last day, which was almost 4 months ago. Why did not you come back sooner, you ask? Simple, you were not needed then. Some events needed to occur before you returned. I do not organize these things, and I could try to make it all sound zen with mysterious and cryptic messages, but I like to keep things simple. Some of those events started before you died. One reason you cannot remember much about the day you died is that it is simply too painful. I'm going to go over it quickly with you like ripping off a Band-Aid. After I am done, the memories will come flooding back. So be prepared, this will not be easy for you. That day you left work like any other work day, but you remembered that your wife of 3 years, Becky, was going to be at a church committee meeting until 5:30. When you left a little early, and considering the stupid fight you had the night before, you decided to surprise her at the church and take her out for a nice dinner. When you arrived at the church at 5:05, there were so few cars there that you thought the meeting must have been canceled, but her car was still there. So you went inside. After greeting the secretary, she informed you that Becky was in the gym preparing it for a small dinner that night. As you walked towards the gym, you started to call her name, but you heard grunts and other muffled sounds that made you hold your tongue. Following those sounds, you found her sitting on the kitchen counter with Jim Flanagan, the new guy at church, in a situation that would be hard to explain even for Mr. Fire and Brimstone. Yes, they were about to have sex, and soon would have if you had not walked in at that moment. I told you I like to keep things simple. It clears up many potential misunderstandings. It was then that you cleared your throat and said angrily, I came to get you for dinner, but it looks like you have already been eating more than you should. Do not bother coming home. In a church of all places. You left as suddenly as you had appeared to them, and you heard her calling for you to come back. You went out and got in your car, still stunned by the shock. You got in your car and headed home when another car driven by a drunk ran a stop sign and killed you. By the way, he did not have a very good time of it either. He went south for a long-term visit. Very far south, if you know what I mean. He winked at me before it all sank in. It all came flooding back to me, the pain of finding them, the pain of the accident as I lay there dying, and the indignity I suffered as I waited for the police and paramedics to arrive, while Becky cried uncontrollably, telling me how sorry she was. Her blouse was still unbuttoned and crooked. I remembered seeing that idiot standing there watching the whole scene. I swear he gave me the "I just had sex with your wife" smile more than once. A couple of other people from the church came out since it was less than 250 meters away. The cops arrived and pushed the crowd back to administer first aid. I tried to scream, but I do not think it was as loud as I intended when I yelled, "Keep that adulterous wife of mine and her lover away from me." Everyone heard it, though I knew from the expressions on their faces and the fact that Becky collapsed sobbing loudly. Now all that pain, suffering, humiliation, and 1,000 other negative emotions flooded me like a tsunami crashing onto the shore. I let out what could be described as a howl of pain that could wake the dead. Then I wondered if I had woken up other SSOAs. Not so loud, Ken. They might hear you. Or well, maybe that is a good thing. To the living, that sounded like a ghostly moan. That is where the living got the idea for that whole thing. If they heard that one of them might be looking out the window to see what caused that noise. They cannot hear our normal level of speaking or even shouting well most of the time. They did not really hear the moan as much as they might have felt the pain you released when you did it. For future reference, if you want to be heard, remember that moment, relive it, feel all the pain of that moment, and then let it all out like you just did. If they, the living, are quiet or receptive enough, they will hear you. I remembered being put in the ambulance after the firefighters had to use the jaws of life to get what was left of my mangled body out of my car. I remember crying not from the pain, but from the heartache of betrayal that hurt me much more. I remember losing the will to live, and I let myself go in the ambulance. Then there was a big void until the fading in. The movement of the curtains in the front window caught my attention. It was that son of a gun, Jim Flanagan. He was living in my house with my wife. I was in shock. I could not do anything about it then, but now his ass was mine. I jumped up from where I had been kneeling and moaning on my front lawn and ran towards the front door. I tried to open it, but I just went right through. There he was, leaning over a small planter that was in front of the window, looking back and forth for the source of the noise. I walked behind him and kicked him in the ass as hard as I could. Well, maybe you saw that coming, but I was a newly reformed and very emotional non-corporeal being, and having been solid all my life, I expected to connect, or at least feel the recoil, as he went headfirst into the window. Instead, I just spun around in an ethereal whirlwind. Hell, I could not even have kicked him. I do not have feet. Tom was laughing at the door, and Jim just stood up and shivered as if a chill had run down his spine. It was probably the breeze coming off me as I spun rapidly for what seemed like 20 seconds. Then he shrugged and walked right through me as if I was not there. Well, I guess I was not there for him anyway. I followed him back to my old room, but Tom stopped me. Wait a moment. We still have a few things to talk about before you do anything. The first thing you need to remember is that you have been dead for quite some time, and Becky has never been a person to be alone for long. That is part of the reason she fell into Jimmy's arms in the first place. You used to spend a lot of time at work earning that big salary and getting ready for the next promotion. She got into some church jobs to fill her time, and Jim saw his opportunity. If you had not guessed it, he has done this kind of thing before, and that is why you are here. What is the reason I am here? I mean, why am I here? You are here to prevent Jim from taking advantage of Becky. I would say it is a little late for that, Tom, I replied sarcastically. Not like that, you fool. He is only around now for the insurance check and the settlement from the drunk who hit you. As soon as he can get his hands on that money, which should be over $500,000 after the lawyer's cut, he is going to leave her high and dry. I thought you did not know the future. I told you I do not know the future because it can change, and in this case you can change it. I would say she deserves what she gets. Do you not think so? The cheater gets cheated on. You know that kind of karma is the best. It is not my decision, Ken. Either way, you have to stick around for a while before the call to judgment. Do what you think is right. This is going to be terrible. I have to stay here and watch helplessly as my wife and her lover live in my house and live what should have been my life. He is probably in there sleeping with her right now in my bed. How long must I endure this pain on top of all the other crap I have been through? As I said, I am not sure about the future, but I think the insurance payment will come in about 30 days. Great, just great. No wonder ghosts moan in pain and try to scare the living. It is the only thing they can do because they are hurt and angry. And now, Ken, there are a few more things you need to know. First is that Becky still loves you very much. I know it seems like she chose a fine way to show it, but it was the first time for both of them. If she said it, you would not believe her, but I am telling you as the simple fact that it is. Besides, he is a skilled predator, and Becky gave him a hard time before. In a moment of weakness, she finally gave in. He is a con man, plain and simple. He now has aspirations of perfecting his game and moving on to a higher level of target using the settlement money as seed money to make himself look rich, very rich. She felt so guilty about your death and wanted to end it between them, but he manipulated her into keeping him around, but cooling it off for a while. He moved in a week ago. They had sex only for the second time that night. Life is not all roses and wine for either of them. Tom spent the next few hours telling me the ins and outs of being dead. Then he concluded, well, I have to go. I will check in on you from time to time. If you need me, call me. Just scream my name as loud and as long as you can. I have other spirits to guide, so I might not be able to come right away, but I will get there as soon as I can. Any questions? How can I make this less terrible? I mean, it seems like someone is trying to rub salt in my wounds. Do you not think I have suffered enough? It does not matter what I think. This whole situation is what you make of it. Only you can make it less terrible. You have a few things to think about. Oh, there might be a surprise for you, but I am not going to reveal it. You can figure this one out on your own. See you later, Ken. With a smile and a wave, he vanished. I could not even look at Becky, but I followed Jim like a hawk when she was not around. If he farted, I could tell you how bad it smelled. If he was going to be near Becky, I left them alone. If they started to get affectionate, I knew I would go crazy. Tom had given me some exercises to learn how to use and channel my emotions to get a message across to the living. I started using my ghostly moans to send single-word messages. It took a lot out of me to get that emotional, so I could not send another message for a few hours. I was getting better at it. One day I was in the living room while Jim was watching baseball on my big screen. I cannot believe it. He is a damn Cubs fan, and I was sending him a message that I considered him an idiot. It seemed he did not get that message. When I wildly waved my arms as I let my ghostly moan fly, I brushed a lampshade and made it tremble. I scared myself more than Jim. If I focused more on my pain, maybe I could affect the physical world a little here and there. Tom had told me that some of his spirits had developed that ability over time, but it usually took a long time. A few days later, Becky was at work, and he was around the house because he had lost his job supposedly due to a layoff. He was talking to the person on the other end of the line, and it was obvious it was a woman. Hello, love. It is good to hear your voice again. Are you out? He paused. Yes, I guess that was a silly question. At least you only have 90 days. Listen, I have a target, and I should have this wrapped up in a few weeks. Are you okay? Where are you? You should have some cash I left in the bank for you from the last job we did together. I really cannot send you any more money right now. I have to keep up appearances. She thinks I am an investment banker. I know it is not much, but you can make it last. The payout on this one will be our biggest score yet, and if you show up we could blow it. After a longer pause, because yes, I know you are near me. You know I will have to come to you for some of that sweet love from that hot body. Trust me on this. The one I am with now cannot even compare to you. She is just not as passionate in bed, and not to mention a lack of imagination. While the stupid cow could win the Prude of the Year award. But then again her old man just kicked the bucket. No, I did not kill him. Rather he saw us doing it, and took off. A drunk finished him off, and we are waiting for the insurance settlement. It is today. The money from his life insurance policy is enough to set us up nicely. If you have enough to stay where you are, please do so. We can call each other almost every day while she is at work. I really do not want to risk blowing this. There is too much at stake. Yes, she is at work right now, and I have missed you so much. After that it degenerated into phone sex. I did not stick around for that. As a member of the almost dead but not quite alive club, I did not sleep like the living. When I got tired, usually during the day, I would fade out only to reappear a few hours later. This left me with many hours at night where I would be completely bored with no one to even talk to, and I could not even watch trashy TV over someone's shoulder. I was lonely and miserable, and I talked to myself constantly. I got to see the woman actually just a covered lump in the bed in a dark room, as I still could not bear to see her after what she had done, who I used to love in bed with the con man who would empty her bank accounts, leaving her as empty as he left me. Karma can be a bitch, especially if you marry one. On the other hand, I did not want him to get away with it either. Was there a way to let him get my death money from her, since the only thing she did to earn it was betray me, and still not allow him to profit from it? If there was, how could I make it happen with my extremely limited ways of communicating with the living world? I had a lot of time to ponder these questions. At least it seemed so. I had not decided what action I should take to help her either. I was right with my earlier assessment of this situation. This was horrible. 2 weeks into my torment, I started to work out a plan using bits of information I gained from observing how Jim planned to steal my death money from Becky. He planned to transfer it all to a bank in the Cayman Islands a few hours after the insurance check cleared. Once confirmed in his account, he was going to leave in the middle of the night, meeting his accomplice already on their way to a well-deserved vacation, in his words, in the Bahamas. So if I timed it right, he would transfer the money. Then somehow I could deliver the evidence of his crimes to the right people, and hopefully they could arrest him before he boarded his plane. I was working on the details of how to get evidence against him and how to let people know about it when I got the surprise that Tom had predicted. Jim and Jane were talking at least once a day while Becky was at work, and being the nosy person I always listened. Jane had been expressing her concerns with him about his bedroom activities with Becky when Jim revealed the truth. Love, I am not sleeping with her that much, very little, at most once a week. Yes, being pregnant decreases her sex drive. What, I screamed. 1,000 questions started running through my mind. Jim laughed. No, it is not mine. I had a vasectomy years ago, remember? She was almost a month pregnant when I finally seduced her, and even she did not know it. She absolutely freaked out when she missed her period. She already felt guilty enough after our first time led to her old man's death, but being pregnant and not even knowing who the father is. He laughed again. You know, she called me as soon as she got back from the doctor. I had still been trying to give her comfort, quote unquote, from a distance, because she pushed me away after the accident. She calmed down a bit after I told her I had been fixed due to a genetic defect in my family. A few days later, she told me she was considering an abortion because she thought she could not deal with a constant reminder of her betrayal of Ken. Her family convinced her that a little piece of Ken would live on. Of course, they did not know we did the dirty right there in the church kitchen. He laughed again. My anger reached new heights as he boasted and flaunted Becky's pain. She was my wife. I love my wife. Get out of here, I screamed in his face like I had never done before. He jumped up from his chair and looked around in a panic. I think he heard me this time. My anger was not subsiding, and I had not noticed his reaction. I swept through the room trying to knock things over or break anything I could touch. Yes, I did manage to knock over a plastic flower arrangement and a picture frame from our wedding. Jim was really scared. He was holding the phone away from his ear, and Jane was loudly asking him what was going on. I directed my attention towards him and ran right at him, well through him. This time he felt it. What the hell is going on here? Jim yelled. Who is here? Come out now, and I will not have you arrested. I went from being angry to confused until I realized that the idiot had heard, felt, and seen what I did. I laughed harder than I ever had, partly from the fear on his face, mostly from the relief of all the pent-up emotions. Who is laughing? I can hear you laughing. Show yourself now, and I will not have you arrested. I had not even considered that he could hear me laugh. Was it all because of the pent-up emotions, or was he just in a very receptive state due to my other actions? I was not sure, but I thought I would try something. I went up to his ear and screamed, "I am Ken Goodman, and I am back. No, it cannot be you. You are dead. What is going on? You cannot fool me. How are you doing this? I am a ghost, you idiot," I screamed again. I must have lost my emotional focus because he did not react to that. Anyway, I was getting tired, full of confused emotions, and having laughed more than I had in years. Several hours later, when I reappeared, it was almost time for Becky to come home. After my proclamations, I realized that I still loved her, but I really hated what she had done to us. However, if she was pregnant with my baby, I had to see her. I needed to touch, or at least try to touch her belly. I needed to confirm that she was carrying my baby. When she walked in the door, I was waiting for her in the kitchen. As I looked at her, she seemed to have lost weight overall, but she definitely had a more noticeable pregnancy bump because of her thinness. She walked to the family room where that idiot was watching a Cubs game on my big screen. She gave him a peck on the cheek, interrupting his game before sitting on the nearby sofa. "What a day," she exclaimed. "Any luck on the job hunt, Jim? I have a new lead, and I have not heard back from last Monday's interview yet." He had not looked for anything or gone on any interviews. "That is good. Do not give up. I know it is tough out there in this economy, but you will find something soon." "Oh, I have not given up, not even close." He turned his attention back to the game. "Run like you stole something. You are going to get caught, you idiot." Damn it, they caught him. A stray thought occurred to me: if I could do something here and there to make the Cubs lose more often, I knew it would ruin his day, but I could not do that to all the innocent quote-unquote Cubs fans out there. Wait, is there such a thing as an innocent Cubs fan? After all, they had to know what they were getting into by choosing the lovable losers in the first place. Still, Wrigley was a couple of 100 miles away, and I did not want to be away from that idiot long enough for him to make plans I did not know about. Becky rolled her eyes at Jim's focus on the game as she settled in. I went to her and looked at the life growing inside her. I slowly reached out to caress her belly, and my heart melted when I touched her. She had a peaceful smile on her face. I rubbed both hands around her pregnancy bump, and I could almost feel the warmth of both of them and the love she had developed for him. Him? How could I know it was a him? I could feel that I was going to have a son, and in that second it all became real to me. Becky closed her eyes and relaxed, enjoying the emotional bond we three now had. With my right hand, I reached into her womb and touched him so he could feel my love. I moved my other hand to Becky's cheek. Her head tilted towards that side, just as it did when I used to touch her face. We were in ecstasy for several minutes until Get Wings Ball Jim was yelling. The announcer was using the standard phrase, it is going, as the potential home run ball approached the outfield fence, and it falls just inside the fence. That was close. Only one run for the Cubs. I was angry at him for ruining our moment, so I got up and tried to hit him on the head. I did not actually connect, but it made me feel better. I focused my anger for a moment and aimed my finger at the power button on the remote, and I managed to turn off the TV. Jim was about to accuse Becky of turning it off when he realized she had the remote on the arm of the recliner she was sitting in, and it was too far for her to reach. "I must have hit the button by mistake," he said aloud, comforting himself after today's events. Then he noticed that Becky looked very confused. "Are you okay, honey?" "I must have fallen asleep for a moment." She reoriented herself. "It is the strangest thing, but I dreamed that Ken was here. He was holding me and my baby. It felt so wonderful that I did not want to wake up." She sighed, then her face turned sad again. "I miss Ken so much." Jim felt a shiver run down his spine and got a little nervous at the mention of my name, unusual for him, but not out of the ordinary after his experience this morning. "Well, he is not here. I am. I will be with you through all of this. I will even raise his son as my own. I have promised you that. I know, and you are a good man for staying with me. I know I have not been the easiest woman to live with since the accident, and my pregnancy has not helped matters. I am going to start dinner." He had her fooled and completely under his control, but he was a professional con man. I followed her to the kitchen, and when she reached for something from a high shelf, I wrapped my arms around her waist as I had done so many times before. I just held her, and she seemed to feel me, or it was my love again. It was not as intense this time, but just as pleasant and warm. At one point, she shook me off as if I were a remnant of a good dream, interrupting her task. I guess that is what it was. When I was alive, I did not like to cuddle because I got sweaty and hot very easily. If it was before or after sex, I would enjoy the afterglow with a good but short cuddle. Occasionally, during the cold nights of an Illinois winter, I could snuggle on the couch watching a movie with Becky under a blanket her grandmother had knitted, but that was about it. Since my untimely death, that cuddle was the best feeling I had had, period. I felt warm inside and almost alive again. I started cuddling with Becky every night after that. I found my way into her dreams a few times by stroking her head as she dreamed. We had conversations of a sort. It is hard to communicate with the living, and my talents were not good enough to keep the link open for long. My messages to her were aimed at protecting and looking out for the best interests of my unborn son. If he was to grow up and be emotionally stable, he could not have a mother full of guilt and consumed by those thoughts every time her son reminded her of his father, right? My feelings of betrayal turned to anger directed at myself for neglecting her and at Jim for seducing her. I began to forgive her for my son's sake and for the happy times we had together. My first thought message to her was that I was very happy to have a son. She wanted to know how I knew. I told her I was watching over her and him and that I would do my best to make sure she was happy and that he grew up to be a good man. The next night, I told her she should no longer cry for me. She needed to find a good man to help raise my son. He would need a strong father figure in his life. She would have to move on. She resisted that idea, even though we both knew that idiot was sleeping just inches away. She thought that if I was visiting her like this, she could find the strength to raise her son alone. I was sad when I told her my time was limited, so her plan was not an option. She thought that by being with another man, she would be betraying me again. I told her that was only true with this man, but I did not offer any more details before I disappeared from her dream. Their relationship started to cool down after that. Despite his best efforts, he could not seem to win her back. He told himself he just had to make it last another 2 weeks until he could get his hands on the money. He would do his best, but he would not push too hard so that it did not come to a head, or at least she would feel very guilty about kicking a good guy, note the irony, unemployed out of her house. Several nights later, I told Becky to buy a voice-activated recording device and plant it in the living room where he used to take his calls from Jane. She asked me why she needed to do this. I told her it would become apparent when she did. It took her 3 nights of dreams to convince her, but she finally gave in. The night after she installed it, I told her to prepare for a brutal truth that would be revealed when she listened to the recording the next day, as I had heard him incriminate himself pretty well that morning. I told her to remain calm and to have a close friend with her when she listened to it, but not to do it at home. She grabbed the recorder from under the end table as she walked out the door to go to work the next day and called Ginny, her best friend from work, for a closed-door meeting in her office. She explained that her trust in Jim was failing, so she planted this device and wanted to have someone with her when she listened to it, just in case. They listened to Jim talk on the phone with Jane, and they were both in shock and tears in no time. He was disparaging Becky in every way he could think of. He told Jane how much he was looking forward to getting with her and how he was counting the days until then. He asked her if the Cayman account was set up and got the information from her for the transfer. He even discussed the plan with Jane and told her that the date was set for the deposit, that he would buy the plane tickets the next day. Ginny comforted her, and when they calmed down, Ginny said, "Becky, you have to call the police. You do not know what he might do to you if he finds out you know. You cannot go back there without some protection or plan. You have to think about the baby too." After a little coaxing, Becky took the afternoon off and spent it with the fraud department and the district attorney, telling them her story and letting them listen to her evidence. That night, Becky had a lot of trouble falling asleep next to a known criminal, but when she finally did, I was there. She wanted to know how I knew. I simply told her there were few secrets on this side. She asked why I had not just told her what Jim was doing, and I replied that she probably would not have believed me. Con men like him were pretty good at making people believe what they wanted. She was worried about the baby's safety, and I told her he had not seriously hurt anyone yet, and was very likely to just run if he thought he had been found out. She told me the police were going to set a trap and that they needed a few days to do it. They needed her to act as if nothing was wrong. I told her I would help in any way I could, but I would not let him harm her or little Kentucky. Little Ken? She sat straight up in bed with her eyes open. Her sudden movement scared me, and I silently fell to the floor. Jim also woke up a little drowsy and asked, "Are you okay, honey?" "Oh yes, I am fine. I just had a dream about what I should name the baby." I am going to name him Kenneth Ryan Goodman Jr., but you told the obstetrician you did not want to know if it is a boy or a girl. And what if it is a girl? It is definitely a boy, and he will be named after his father. Okay, now go back to sleep. Becky relaxed a little more with Jim after that. The police did not want to rush the timeline so as not to alert him. They placed listening devices in the house and gave Becky a bracelet with a panic button so that if Jim tried to do anything to her, she could call for help day or night. I watched Jim and informed Becky that he had no idea we were onto him and his plan. One night, Becky asked me why I was doing this. Why was I going out of my way to help her after she had betrayed our love as she did? I told her I had forgiven her. Although I was partly to blame for neglecting her, Jim was the one who deserved my wrath. He took full advantage of the situation, as was his nature, and she was manipulated by a professional. At first, he just wanted to have sex while he found a victim for his next con, but suddenly with the insurance money coming in, she became the victim. She had some responsibility in this, but since I did not have to worry about her cheating on me again, I found it easy to put my son's interest above all else. I also told her that I still loved her despite her mistakes. She professed an unwavering love for me as well. I told her to leave room in her heart for another one who would help raise my son and possibly their children as well. I would do my best to guide her to a good man. She did not want to think like that, not after all that had happened. I asked her how she would feel if she were the one who had passed away. Would she want me to find someone to help raise our son in the best way possible? Reluctantly, she understood. I told her that letting someone else into her heart would not push me out. I reminded her that she had a big heart with a lot of love and that she would have the happiest life possible if she could remember that. It was time for me to fade out, and we both rested. It was the day before the money transfer when we learned that Jane had come to town and was staying at a hotel near the airport. Jim had been bringing some things for her that she wanted to take with her, like Becky's jewelry. He knew he would have to leave most of his clothes behind, so as not to alert anyone, which he was not too concerned about, because he would buy more and better clothes to suit his new image. He had also spent the latter part of the morning and afternoon at the hotel enjoying Jane's physical attributes. When the time came, Jim got out of bed at 1 a.m, went to his laptop, and set up the transfer. When he received the transfer confirmed message from the police, not the bank, as he thought, he sent a text message to Jane to pick him up. He got dressed and stole a couple of things from the house that had caught his eye during his stay. Becky pretended to be asleep, but got up when she heard the front door close. She saw him put a small bag in the trunk, give a passionate kiss to an attractive woman she had never seen before, and get in the car. She breathed a sigh of relief. They arrived at the airport at 2 o'clock for their 4 o'clock flight to Atlanta, where they would change identities and fly to Miami. They would change identities again and take a cruise to the Bahamas. Airport security stopped them as they were individually passing through the baggage scanner. When they were both secure in the detention area, they were arrested and taken to the police station, where they were formally charged with a long list of crimes. They were going to spend a long time in prison. Later, Becky had to go to the police station to identify the things Jim had taken as stolen when she met a new man from the district attorney's office. He was only a couple of years out of law school, but he was a widower and had a 2-year-old daughter. Every time they got close to each other, one of them would drop something or bump into the other. After a while, they got the hint, and he asked her to dinner. It was a good thing he did. I only had 1 or 2 more pranks left in me. That night, I told Becky that Joe, the guy she had met today, was really a good man, that he would be a good husband and father. And if there was any chemistry between them, she should not let it slip away. I already knew there would be chemistry, but I did not want to take anything for granted or ruin it for them. I told her with tears in my eyes that I believed my time was running out, or would be very soon. I told her we did not get a chance to say goodbye last time, and since I was not entirely sure when I would be leaving, we should say it now. She did not want me to leave. I told her I did not want to leave either, but I would do what I could to take care of her and my little Kentucky. In her dream, we hugged and held on to each other so tightly. In the bed, I moved my hand to her belly and touched my son as I did that day a couple of weeks ago. Back in the dream, Becky and I were hugging with little Ken between us. We kissed, and I felt myself fading away. Goodbye, my love. Live a good life, and we will meet again. I love you. She replied that she would love me until the end of time as I faded away before her eyes. Becky cried until she woke up. She realized that although she was really alone now, I would be there in ways she could not understand. I was watching her, and my heart was breaking. I felt Tom's arm on my shoulder. It is time to go, he told me. I do not want to go. I need to stay here and take care of my son. I need to. Shut up, you fool. He started to float away with me, away from the house, away from the ground and the earth. Have you not heard of guardian angels? This story is a bit sad because of how everything turns out for Ken, who dies and finds out he is going to have a son, and although in the end he transforms into a guardian angel, it is certainly not ideal. On his part, the cheater receives his punishment along with the other woman. As for the wife, in many stories we also want revenge against her, but in this one it becomes difficult to hate her. After all, what do you think? Should he have taken revenge on her?